sitting here in a cell at the Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield, and you might recognize this place as the primary filming location for The Shawshank Redemption, but long before this was a setting for movies and music videos and photo shoots, this was a fully functioning reformatory prison. For 94 years, from 1896 to 1990, more than 154,000 prisoners passed through these cell blocks, and this was where you sent the guys that smaller or lower security prisons couldn't handle. And for a while, this was even where death row prisoners were sent to wait for their execution. And I've got to tell you, it's a weird feeling being here. It's so quiet that it's a little bit eerie. All you really hear is the wind howling through the steam pipes and the old chimneys. And some say this place is haunted by the ghosts of prisoners who died here, but I don't think that's it. I think there's a heaviness that you feel just being here, walking through these halls. You can't help but imagine how hopeless it would have been to be a prisoner here. I mean, sure, if you were here, there was a good reason for it, but this is a dark, really cold, sad place. In The Shawshank Redemption, there's a character named Brooks. He's an older man who's really kind and really nice to everyone. He's just a good guy. He'd been a prisoner at Shawshank for decades, but he'd earned the trust of the warden and the guards over time, and he was put in charge of running the prison library. He had been in prison for so long that every other part of his life outside of this place had long since slipped away. His friends and family were other prisoners. His whole life was inside these walls. Well, eventually the time came that Brooks' sentence was complete, and they told him he was free to go. But when he made it out, he didn't know what to do. Everything he knew was found here, and he'd grown so used to life as a captive that he didn't know how to be free anymore. Red, who was played by Morgan Freeman, put it this way, and I thought this was really profound. He said, you know, these walls are funny. First you hate them, and then you get used to them, and enough time passes, you get so you depend on them. And he said they send you here for life, and that's exactly what they take from you. Well, that's exactly what shame does in your life. It robs you of the part of your life that really matters, and when you live with it long enough, it just becomes a part of who you are. It becomes your identity. And before you realize it, you're so used to life as a captive that you don't know how to be free. And if that's where you find yourself today, I want you to know that Jesus has hope for you. Romans chapter 3 says that every single person has sinned and fallen short of God's glory. And Romans chapter 6 says that the punishment for that, the wages, what we deserve for our sin is death. But my favorite part is in Romans chapter 8, where we read that if we've put our faith and trust in Jesus, there is no more condemnation for us. We're free. The cell door is swung wide open by God's grace because of what Jesus did for us on the cross, and we're offered freedom in exchange for our prison bars. But while the doors are wide open and there's nothing holding us in this cell, many of us willingly choose to stay right where we are. Rather than accepting the freedom that we find in Jesus, we just keep right on living as if we're prisoners of our guilt and our shame. But in John chapter 8, Jesus has a good word for you. He says, "Very truly I tell you, everyone who sins is a slave to sin. And now a slave has no permanent place in the family, but a son belongs forever. And so if the Son sets you free, you are free indeed." And friends, the Son has set you free. He set you free. You are free indeed. And He's inviting you to step out of your prison, to be free of your chains, and to live a fulfilled life as a son and daughter of God. You know, maybe it sounds strange because as heavy as it is being here in this place, and as hopeless of a place as this is, there's also a weird feeling of hope here. There's a feeling of hope because these doors are wide open, and this place won't ever hold anybody captive again. There's a weird feeling of hope here because all of the hopeless days are in the past, and so are yours. So today, stop carrying the guilt that you've been carrying, and stop living with the shame you've been living with, and step into the freedom that Jesus offers you as a son or daughter of the King, step into the life that he offers you. Because the Son has set you free, and you are free indeed.